Thank you very much. Just want to say that I'm in my sabbatical semester and I was able to match with a senior Latin American fellowship, so I've been doing great here at the STRIFE for a few months. So the original title has in the Caribbean and the Pacific, but this is going to be the title of my topper seminar in June. So I'm going to focus just on this little aspect. So I've been working for many years in the octocoral communities at both sides of America and shallow waters. So we have roughly 70 species on each side. And in the last 10 years, I've been trying to understand why you have so many sympatric species coexisting together in very dense communities. So everything we see here are Neuritia species in the tropical Eastern Pacific, and they are very closely related. And the only event that we can talk about an allopathic speciation event was the rise of the Isthmus of Panama. And using the Isthmus of Panama, we only have, we can spare only 6 events dividing clades. And things like 45 Neuritia species and a 10 on the other side, they all originated after the rise of the Isthmus. So it doesn't matter the age of the Isthmus, but everything is so new. So I've been very stubborn trying to understand that. And today I'm going to focus on a likely mechanism giving origin to these very diverse communities. So one very important aspect in corals is phenotypic plasticity in form, particularly in branching. This is a very common example, Posiloporas lamicornis, a Pacific coral, who lives along the whole reef gradient. This is a gradient mix between depth and water motion. And you get these morphologies in very shallow water, and you get these sort of like massive morphologies here, and you get different things here. They look like very different species, but they're actually the same species. And if you look at the one reef with all the different habitats in one, this is an atoll. It's one of the climatic phases of a reef that has all kinds of energy levels and light levels in shallow waters. You do a transect, along an atoll, and you get very exposed sides here, a very protected lagoon, and a semi-exposed reef here. You get a very interesting pattern. You get some species living in the very exposed side of the atoll, but nowhere else. You get some living in the lagoon of the reef, and nowhere else. Some living in the leeward side, and nowhere else. A few species living here and here. Some living here, and just a few species, 4 or 5 species, that can live everywhere in the atoll. And of course, those species have this huge morphological plasticity, and I've been even more stubborn to try to understand this pattern. So if you mix this data with the phylogeny, you will get a signal for habitat filtering. But is there any relationship between the diversification of all these 60 species assemblage and these different habitats and conditions? So, well, let's examine one of those cases of species living throughout the different habitats. This is Octocorallia bipinnata, and this is Octocorallia callus. It was described as a different species, but it seems to be part of the same complex. And this is in Caribou Key, Belize. The species live from 2 meters down to 45 meters. And as you can see, something like this looks nothing like this. But you get the whole gradient of intermediate forms. And if you look at the microscopic sclerites, the only skeleton characters of this species, you get also a same gradation of forms between callus and the deep water form. And if you do some measurements between these characters, you can have up to 1 order of magnitude in the same species. So it's kind of like amazing to have the kind of plasticity. And a few years ago, using just the markers that we have in hand, nuclear genes, mitochondrial genes, everything looked like they were all together, completely polyphyly of all the different morphs. So probably this is a pure case of phenotypic plasticity. However, is there a relationship with those species that are colonizing all the habitats and an ecological speciation? So this is the big question that I want to answer. And there's another component besides the branching shape, which is the zooxanthellae. You have a species living at 2 meters and the same species living at 45 meters. For sure, they have different kinds of zooxanthellae. So that's another trait that is quite important. So we came up with this very sort of like simple model that you have the fitness of a species in this space, and we are assuming that with time, this is a philopatric species that start colonizing very little as it gets in one place, and you start gaining plasticity and you start gaining habitats colonizing, but you get achieved in the adaptive peaks of the species. So if that happens, you're getting selection acting on contrasting parts of your species. So maybe the shallow water and the deep water are getting under strong selection, and especially if your population are getting bigger and bigger. So eventually, you ended up with ecological speciation. And what is really interesting is that you're starting with a huge plasticity, and eventually you lose it. You ended up with very, very narrow plasticity, and that makes sense if something has to have different, so an intracellular symbiont that has to communicate molecularly with their host species. And there's a lot of recent evidence of ecological speciation of this kind. This is the three-spine sticklebacks. They first colonize a number of freshwater lakes after the glaciations. So you get this speciation, saltwater to freshwater, and then you get this the benthic and the limnetic, and with population genomic methods, people are finding those adaptations, and these are incipient ecological species which are more stronger in some lakes than in others. So this is very compelling, and maybe this is a general model of ecological speciation. So my project here is an integrative approach, so it has a lot of field work, lab work, and mostly computation work. So I'm going to do all the common garden experiment that hasn't been explored completely in this species, do huge population samplings, both in Belize and in Bocas del Toro. And I'm going to look for signatures of selection by habitat, underlying adaptations produced by the water motion depth gradient. So I'm going to use multiplex shotgun genotyping, a method by Peter Andolfato, one of my collaborators. It's something similar to RATAX. It's a little bit easier. It only uses frequent cutter enzymes, and it doesn't use the shearing part. So it's a simplified version, but I might use a mix of the two methods. So the idea is to have a very dense scan of SNPs throughout the genome, and look for adaptations at the genome. But if you want to do that, if you want to do genomics, you need a reference genome. If you do genomics without a reference genome, it's like to be in love with someone you don't know. So you really need an octocoral genome, because you need a population. You need to do downstream population genomics. You need to go in the order of the SNPs, and for that matter, I'm doing the whole genome. It's not I just need the draft sequence. I'm going to do annotations for this time, and I need to do a genetic linkage map in order to place all those SNPs in the genome. So I have a new challenge, because in Bocas del Toro, the other population I'm working with, you have the same response, the same equally response, Kalos and the deep water ones, but only between 6 meter difference. So it turns out that the light attenuation in Bocas del Toro is actually higher at 8 meters than at 45 meters in Caribou Key, because of the water is like a very siliciclastic kind of type of reef. And the slope begins at 5 meters. So I'm getting like a miniature Caribou Key in Bocas del Toro. So it's a fantastic challenge, because I'm getting the same signal, but the populations are obviously less separated in an ecological fashion. Well, so more recently, we found some additional compelling evidence. These are sequences of ITS from bipinnata and Kalos from Panama and Belize. And it turns out that the Kalos from Belize is the only well-supported clade in the whole thing. The rest is pretty much the same. And so what's going on with Kalos in Belize, and why not the Kalos from Panama is separate? So, and something like that, some people is finding similar results with another species. This is Flexuosa. This is another species living in all the different habitats. So Carlos Prime, Puerto Rico, is also finding some differences responding to habitats. But previously, Kim and collaborators did the same in Florida, and they didn't find that. So there is an important geographical component. And the Caribbean, which is a pretty small Mediterranean-type ocean, is actually pretty complex in terms of connectivity between populations. These polygons are the different subpopulations that Montasio nularis, broadcast spawner coral, has in the Caribbean. The larvae is released in the column, and it can, swim for several days, even 1 or 2 weeks. So you expect that populations are very well connected because there's reef all over the Caribbean, but not. You get things very isolated. And bipinnata is a brooder species. So their distribution is very phylopatric, so the larvae usually settles within the tens of meters from the maternal colony. So, and we know, we've been visiting all these places, and you only get very dense populations of bipinnata here in the southern Caribbean, in the Mesoamerican reef, of course, and in the Bahamas, a little bit in Florida. You get the species eventually, but it's just a rare species, not a population as a whole. And things like Bocas del Toro has 300 kilometers to the next other very dense population of bipinnata. So it's very isolated. We don't know if what's happening here is the same that it happened here. And if you have a habitat difference of 45 meters and here only 6, so the dynamics of the ecological speciation might be very different. So you can end up with a similar scenario, like sticklebacks, that you have events happening in parallel with very different results. So this is one of the challenges that we have for this project. So we're doing the common garden experiments in this fashion, to sites, to habitats, and moving colonies, fragments of colonies all over. And we're trying to sample 96 individuals from all these sites, and also for 4 sites in the same fashion in Caribou Key, to have like 384 samples per each site, and do MSG libraries for looking at SNPs for those specimens. And for the transplant, there is something like really particular of gorgonians, that if you do some clipping, we found a few years ago, that you get this fast regeneration response. So in just a few months already, the experiments I set up last year, I already have a bunch of new characters. And I'm doing like a big effort to do some sliding landmarks analysis in the sclerites. So there's 3 types of sclerites, and you can have some fixed landmarks present in all the sclerites, and a few moved landmarks in the rest of the sclerite, and do the change, the reaction norms using this type of information. Also, we have some interesting progress in domesticating a little bit the mother. So because it's a brooder, the mother retains the larvae. These are more small larvae. So we were able, during the reproductive season, to, for some reason, you put a mother and a male, female and male in an aquarium, and they spawn the next day or the next 2 days. We don't know if it's the white light or the stress or something like that, but we did it multiple times. So, and we did it also in the field. You look for a reef without bipinnata, and you leave them isolated, and you can do process. So with those crosses, we can do experiments of prezygoidal isolation, try to do a genetic map, etc. So this is just to show you that with NGS libraries, this is a RATAC library. Just one experiment, they were able to correct the zebrafish genetic map that people took forever to do, and with the RATACs they really improved it only with one library, and they say they can do it with F1s. We don't know. And I'm doing the reference genome of a species without zooxanthellae, because if I do the zooxanthellae genome is about 1.9 gigabases, and the coral is about 450 megabases, so I will end up doing just zooxanthellae work. I want to work in the 2, but I need something to filter that. I need, fall in love with the genome. So I'm using this coral. This is Pacificogorgia from the Pacific, and I have this grant to study the disease and the immune system. So I have the resources to do that, fortunately. So we're annotating something about 10 at the power of 12 breeds, about 50 to 100 base pairs. So last year I have just 100 or so sequences of Octocoral, and today I have a number that I can't even describe. It's a billion or what, so big. And so I'm trying to assemble that, and I will do a first MSG library for the microspatial population structure. I hope I might be able to spot some naturally occurring F1s. So I will do a second library with F2 larvae. So I need to do that during November. Using this, I might be able to filter Cymbiodinium and coral and do, of course, genetics with Cymbiodinium as well. After that, I'm going to have hopefully the nice linkage map for this genome. And I will end up with physical mapping, and the ultimate goal is to do downstream population genomics to find the underlying adaptations. So these are a bunch of pipelines and programs that I need to use. At this moment I'm working in this part. Soon we'll start with this. And at the end the idea is to do a little bit of annotation to the places that I have adaptation, and I'm going to do everything on the Amazon cloud. So what I'm expecting is to do the downstream population genomics, something like Camilo and was showing a lot of data. So these are the sticker bags when they compare ocean by ocean, different locations. So you get a distribution of FSTs along the genome, certain range of value. But if you compare between habitats, like shallow and deep, what I expect is to find somewhere in the genome the underlying adaptations, and hopefully go to annotate and found the genomic island or something like that. So my collaborators, I will ask her, Filian Dolfaro, Merelis Kofrod, PhD students working, of course, Harris, opened the lab to me, the volunteer in Bocas, and the station in Bocas in Kariboki, and of course, a bunch of graduate students working in my lab and helping with all these things. And thanks to you for your attention.
I think we should